that has one wacky scene in our first reading, to say the least. Bulls and animals being dismembered, and there's fire and buckets of water being thrown over, and people jumping around on one leg, cut themselves with spears and swords. Extraordinary. It's like something out of a Luc Besson film. I don't know if you ever heard that guy. He's a French director, and he makes wacky films like The Fifth Element and stuff like that. Cool films, but really wacky. But it's been pretty interesting, guys. You know, that battle between the God of Israel and the false pagan god, particularly of Baal. But folks, there's a really important message in both the first reading and our gospel this morning, namely the role of prophets. And prophets, everyone, they're given to us at important times, important junctions in our history, but particularly in the history of salvation. Times where godlessness seems to reign, times where religion is replaced with personal made-up spiritualities, times where God might seem quiet or absent from the world or our lives. Times where civilization might seem on the brink of collapse, etc. Prophets, they're people that God seems to rise up everybody in pivotal moments in our times. And what I've noticed prophets they do, they call all of us out of silliness, to kind of wake up a little bit, cause out of nonsense that we can content ourselves with. We don't like prophets. Prophets are not popular people. They really are not. Because, like I said, they call us out of complacency in our relationship with God, or even with ourselves and with the world around us. They call us very much out of our notions of how God should operate or not operate in the world. And very much so, everyone, they call us back to orthodoxy. What I mean by that, I mean by right praise of how we worship God. That is a key element of prophets since the time of Abraham. Because, folks, our history and the history of the world, it testifies to the reality that we love to go off on our own little ways and do things by ourselves, and how God should be worshipped and this, that, and the other. You know, and when you think about it, what happens very quickly, everybody, is we become pot-bound. That really brilliant image of when there's a plant in a pot and the roots get too big, become pot-bound. It dies. It becomes stagnant because we're cutting off fresh water into our lives and our hearts. Orthodoxy, everybody, is really important. That's why, everybody, we need prophets, not just in the institutional church, but prophets in communities, and particularly in this time in family life. Oh my good Lord, do we need prophets in family life today? That basic civilized institution that God has ordained in this world has been obliterated over the past 60 years. And boy, are we paying the price for it in today's world. Because we don't even know what it is to be human anymore. That's how off the wall it's become. Friends, God will always send someone to pull us back from the brink. Someone to be a voice of God's truth in a time of madness. And in every situation, a prophet is someone who always points towards Christ. Always. And that's where, when Christ speaks this morning, everybody, that he hasn't come to abolish the law, and particularly the 10 Commandments is what he's talking about, or the prophets, that's really important. It tells us two very important things. First, it's showing you and me that the God of Israel, who spoke to and through the prophets, is now standing in front of the apostles and the disciples in human flesh through Christ. That's the first thing. And secondly, the 10 Commandments and what the prophets spoke about, you know, where God sends them to us to wake us up. They exist, everybody, to safeguard you and me from error, to safeguard us from going down the wrong road, to safeguard us very much so from idolatry, which we see in our first reading this morning. And essentially, they safeguard you and me to be as close as possible to God in this life. That's key to it. And they always point towards the culture of Christ's kingdom, where forgiveness, hope, and compassion reign supreme. And if any one of us hope to gain Christ's kingdom, then our lives, folks, must begin to reflect those divine attributes of the Lord's culture and his kingdom. So friends, let's today pray for the gift of discernment from the Holy Spirit, to be more attentive to God's prophets in our time, those who speak the uncomfortable truth of sticking with the Lord's commandments, no matter how popular something else may seem. Because as the Lord himself says today in our gospel, the one who keeps them and teaches them will be considered great in the kingdom of heaven.